how we have come from neighborhood first to neighborhood stress, why India and Bangladesh are seeing worst in their diplomatic relations as of now, and what are the causes behind it, and most importantly, the implications that will fall on. India-Bangladesh relations are facing one of the most serious setbacks in their relations since 1971. And this is not because of a trade dispute, but because of the political instability, of the chaos, and also the erosion of diplomatic trust. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and today we are going to take a deep dive into the fact that how come India-Bangladesh relations have gone to a new low point that we see in recent times. What are the reasons and the recent triggers that are in place, and how they will be causing multiple consequences in front of us. So let us begin with understanding how well placed India and Bangladesh are for each other, and why Bangladesh is important as a neighborhood country for us. So India and Bangladesh over the years have had one of the most significant, one of the most consequential relationships in terms of neighborhood that we have seen, and that is not just because of the 1971 Liberation War, but also the important role India played there, but also the fact that how we share the longest land border with Bangladesh. So if we are talking about the land border, it is one of the neighborhoods where we share the longest border. And over the years, we have not been linked over just economic and security linkages, but also we have had soft power association, human to human linkages that have been seen between the countries. And that is why Bangladesh was placed as a pinpoint when we are talking about the neighborhood first policy, when we are talking about Act East policy. So Bangladesh was given a major role, and it was central to both of these in terms of our foreign policy, and it is also very important in terms of our internal policy, because stability in Bangladesh will ensure stability in our northeast region. And the recent conflict, the recent chaos that we have seen in Bangladesh has also created instability in the northeastern region. There have been claims and naming around Greater Bangladesh, which will internally disturb our country. So this clearly shows that the political stability in a neighborhood nation, how important it is and how deeply it is connected not just to the foreign policy, but also internal dimensions around it. And any disruption that happens here, it directly affects our internal security as well as regional standing. Now on this note, let us move to understand that what are the major concerns as of now that have come to front, and what are the layers behind it. So if we talk about the current crisis, and we have to understand that the current crisis is unusually severe. Definitely I would not say that this is not reversible. There is reversibility to it, because if you remember back in 2022, India-Canada relationship worsened to a great extent, but the recent times with new leadership in Canada, there has been a lot more repair than we expected. But at the same time, as of now, the crisis that is between India and Bangladesh remains unusually severe, and this is because of the multiple stress levels that we get to see, be it at the diplomatic level, where we have seen the envoys from both of the countries have been summoned, where we see at the security level, there are multiple threats to the diplomatic missions which have been there. In anti-India slogans have been part of this whole chaos in Bangladesh since 2024 uprisings, and also humanitarian level, because the visa suspension have been in place, including medical visa. So you have to understand that the severity of this crisis has gone beyond from the diplomatic level. Now it is going to create humanitarian trust as well. And here important keywords for you are not just the diplomatic erosion of trust, but also to understand that this is all way beyond policy disagreement, and this also shows that how as of now India-Bangladesh are just operating in a firefighting mode, in a crisis management mode only. Now when we talk about the situation that is in front of us, now let us try to understand that how it has come to this particular level. Now, when we talk about this particular level, you cannot just go into the immediate context. You have to understand that this is coming after post Sheikh Hasina regime and the 2024 uprising that ousted Sheikh Hasina. Now, Sheikh Hasina government and the elite political class, certain pockets there have been always inclined towards India, and the youth uprising, and ever since then, such elite political class, including Sheikh Hasina, they are seen pro-India, and that stance as of now is not acceptable to the youth segment. In this very context, when we are talking about Osman Hadi, who was recently killed, he was one of the main faces, and that is why anti-India slogans again took up place in Bangladesh, because the killers were alleged that they had fled to India and India is protecting them. Then another incident that happened that threatened the Hindu minorities which are present in Bangladesh, which is a regional concern, which is a concern for India, and this was highlighted through lynching of Hindu youth, that is Dipu Chandra Das. So it clearly showed that a minority right issue is present, and that was also internationalized, and this also led to protests across India. And to add to all of this, which were not just political symbols but also internationalization of the issues of the country, we get to see that Bangladesh brought in visa suspension as the Indian tensions were spiraling. Now, this is where everything went beyond a point as soon as the visa suspension came in. And when Bangladesh suspended the visa services in New Delhi, the Bangladesh High Commission did that. India also strategically restrained, and they also have suspended visa services from the Chittagong office center. Now, in this context, we also have to understand that visa suspension is something that is a strategic restraint that is coming from India and a political move that is coming from Bangladesh. But at the same time, this is going to spiral into a humanitarian crisis, because India issued majorly around 1500 visas every day for Bangladeshi nationals, and majority of these visas was for medical or emergency cases. Now, this suspension is going to disrupt the cancer treatment, it is going to disrupt the organ transplants that were supposed to happen, and chronic care follow-ups that were supposed to take place. And that is what is showing when two countries are looking towards security first diplomacy, they are targeting each other. In this context, how easily soft power can erode and also it can be undermined, and how ordinary citizens yet again become the damage point when they were actually not part of the rift that has been created. Now, in this context, when we look at India's response to suspend the visa services, that has come, as I mentioned, as a strategic restraint, because India does not want to escalate the situation. India knows what important role it plays in the whole region, and in this context, they have just temporarily suspended the visa. They have closed their missions on the security ground because they were threatened for life, especially in Bangladesh. And as of now, India has not done anything to escalate the situation, be it trade sanctions, be it military signaling, or any diplomatic overreaction. Rather, India has also refrained to give any statements except for the protest and certain statements which have condemned the threat that exists to Hindu minorities in Bangladesh itself. Now, this particular action where we just are focusing on strategic restraint, it shows that India is trying to be a responsible regional player here, and India is understanding the importance of long-term stability over short-term political chaos and optics. Because India knows if Bangladesh is left in chaos, if it is left in vacuum, it remains prone to all the external players who are interested to enter India's backyard, be it China, be it Pakistan, be it Turkey and whatnot. Turkey's defense deal, Pakistan's diplomatic engagement, especially after 1971, the only one to take place, and China's interest to build more and more infrastructure. All this should be understood, that how it is important to India gauge for India to gauge every step at this point of time. And this is not the first time that India is maintaining that strategic restraint, because if you look at the case study, even if it is about 1971, there was huge anti-India sentiment which was present. After the regime change, that relation was stabilized when the political consolidation happened. India sustained that. Back in 2013, we also saw an extreme unrest. India still maintained engagement despite anti-India protests were doing rounds in Bangladesh back then. And both of these incidents clearly show that political stability, political consolidation is primary for maintaining stability in foreign policy as well. So these can be your case study to assume that in long term, if political consolidation comes along Bangladesh, things might get back on track for India-Bangladesh relationships as well. Now that we have understood the front and back in terms of what exactly is rattling India-Bangladesh relations, now let us move to look into that how dependent India and Bangladesh are, not just in terms of policies but also in terms of trade, because Bangladesh is dependent on India for trade access, power imports and transit connectivity, be it big projects as Kalidan multimodal project and others. This show that India is also dependent on Bangladesh for better northeast access, for better infrastructure in northeast, Bay of Bengal access and also counter-insurgency which is to be operated through cooperation in this region. And that is why we get to see, despite such chaos that is existing, unusually severe diplomatic relations at our front, there have been no trade and transit sanctions as of now, and there has been no strategic rupture that has taken place. Now let us move ahead and understand that what consequences lie in front of India given the chaos that is going on and the unusually severe relationship that India and Bangladesh have. So primarily, as I mentioned, that we have to understand that this situation in Bangladesh has clearly put India in a place where we cannot contribute directly or influence Bangladesh's internal transition that is taking place. And the cooperation has to be also very cautious, because in this whole scenario, Bangladesh never wanted to be seen as the insignificant one or India in a superior position. So there has to be a cautious cooperation on security matters, and in this context India has also issued a statement saying that we are looking forward to a new regime which comes through a free and fair election. So that clearly indicates that India wants to stay out of influencing the Bangladesh's transition, which previously India has done. Other than that, as I pointed out, geopolitically, this vacuum is a place where Bangladesh would also want to take external help, and the most suitable contender in this scenario becomes China, which will aggressively try to balance India's position. And there is a possibility that Bangladesh might be okay with it, because they want to tell the world that we have the autonomy in our hand and we decide the foreign policy on our basis. And this all might lead to, if not put in place, this all might also affect economic dimensions such as the trade growth that we are expecting. Because as of now, there have been no trade sanctions, understood. But what about the growth that we are expecting? What about the connectivity projects that lie at hand? What about the energy and transit cooperation projects that were present? All of this lies at hand till we get proper understanding and final closure to the political chaos that exists in Bangladesh. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. And in terms of the strategic course from here on, it would be a multi-directional effort where India would have to focus on diplomatic recalibration, democratic credibility in Bangladesh, and bring in deliverable based approach where they solve all the past issues that have been present there. The idea would be to rebuild the trust and not merely manage the crisis that lies at the hand. Now that was all from my side. Thank you so much.